Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Wait a second. I hadn't heard that story that Trina just talked about. With the Midland Lee. Oh, man, I've got like 8 top stories today, and he just gave me a 9th one. So the Midland Lee, because in my hometown that I affectionately call Bug Tussle, the same thing happened. We had Tyler Lee, and they had to change their name to Tyler Legacy. And so I think they just mimicked what happened in Midland. And so is this happening, or is there like a meeting for this? I hadn't heard that story yet. Hey, can you turn train on? There we go. Right. They've done it in a lot of towns, and they're just copying each other. And I have not heard of that being undone, because I get real excited, because this isn't a little thing. This isn't just a logo on the helmet. You know, this goes all the way to the Washington Redskins, the Cleveland Guardians. You know, that's something that a cultural pendulum swinging back this fast is rare, and I love to see it because it was so dumb to begin with. Like, I remember when it was happening in Bug Tussle, they're like, well, we got to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School. Why? Well, because of the ugly legacy attached to, you know, the history of that name. So what are you going to call it? You're going to call it Legacy. But you're just highlighting the and then the other high school that's in Tyler, it was named John Tyler, you know, because the town's named after John Tyler. And they're like, well, we're going to have to change this because, you know, he was a pro-slave Democrat, and, you know, the ugly history that's attached to him. We're going to have to change the name of this high school as well. So it's no longer going to be John Tyler. We're just going to take the name of the town. It's now called Tyler High. It's like, but Tyler is referring to John Tyler. So they didn't fix either one. Like, it was just so dumb that this was happening in front of your face, and you see the people on the news say, hey, this is a good idea, and the school board votes for it, and people show up at public meetings. They talk about it like it's a good idea, and we're all screaming at the TV going, this is dumb. Well, no, and Mike Trainer, what you're bringing up is the same thing we say about when they take down a statue or a monument. There were people here 100 years ago who gave it that name for a reason, and they wanted us in future generations to at least remember that name or discuss that name, whether good or bad. They did it for a reason, and I don't just so easily dismiss the names our great-grandfathers chose, or the statues they put up, or the monuments they erected. You know, it just, like, well, let's tread lightly over there, not just so flippantly like, I don't like that name. So this is huge. It sounds like just some school's changing its name, but you know, you've seen a couple of turns happen where they're going back and they're renaming the military bases that had been renamed because their connection to Confederate generals and whatnot. So it's just mind blowing to see how fast these culture war issues are churning. Thanks for letting me know about that vote. I'm going to keep an eye on that. We might have to talk about that on the show tomorrow for 2 hours. Yeah. And look, I want to go roll back so far. The basketball team stops being the Washington Wizards, and they go back to being the Washington Bullets. Because the Washington Bullets, we're talking about the capital of a country that has the Second Amendment, the only country that has gun rights like this, that is founded by people who are just gun nuts, and they turned it on their government. It was just a beautiful thing, and I thought that was such a perfect mascot. And then they changed it. It was like, oh, there's too many murders here. Well, look, Donald Trump's doing something about that now. He's sitting in the National Guard. What if he cleans it up so much? What if violent crime goes down so much in D.C. they can change the name of their team back to the Bullets? Wouldn't that be great? I think that's the goal here. Like, what's he doing? How do you know when the city's cleaned up enough? When their basketball team doesn't have to be ashamed of the Second Amendment, a right associated in the Constitution, right? Oh man, what a great day! That kind of put me in a good mood. Of course, if the vote fails, I'll swing the other direction and be in a bad mood again. But we got a lot to talk about, so stick around on the James Show. The redistricting fight rolls along, and it's starting to look more theatrical than actual utility happening here. The Russia summit that's coming up on Friday could be historic. I got to get you all caught up on that. But next, a whole bunch of deals that are still happening with China, Russia, Canada, Mexico that are affecting your wallet. RT Trevino with the Crude Truth tells you how it'll affect your energy, your gas prices. Coming up next on the James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. There's some financial news that might affect your money. The tariff threat against China has been moved back another 90 days. We're still trying to work some things out with Canada. Some other deals have come down the line. And one of the ways that all this jumble of trade deals and agreements affects you is at the pump. RT Trevino's back on from the Crude Truth podcast. And first off, prices right now, I mean, I guess historically speaking, compared to the last 5 years, they're a little low, but it's been about this rate for a while now. Have they found a new normal? Well, RT Trevino, now that we have more permits going through and being approved and we sort of streamlined that, shouldn't we be poking more holes in the ground? We're talking with RT Trevino from the Crude Truth podcast. Now, if we get more holes poked in the ground, shouldn't we expect the price of gas and oil generally to go down? All right. We have another season of Landman coming up. Is that something you guys all talk about and chatter about? Yeah, there's too many people dying on the work site in just the first season for that to be realistic. I just look, I can't. It blows my mind how many of my lawyer friends haven't seen Suits. And I figure if they made a awesome series about my line of work, about a talk radio host, I'd be all over that. So I was just wondering if Landman's got to be super cool for you guys. Well, no, that counts, and I did watch Frasier, but I that was before I was a talk show host, so I guess I never made that connection. So tell me about your podcast, The Crude Truth. What do you guys got coming up? What you do in the last episode? Tell me. It turns off. Good. Uh, well, these guys who support petroleum products, I guess that would include plastics. Who are the guys that I need to thank for fighting for the plastic straw? Because one of the greatest injustices that has been foisted upon the American people is the paper straw, and I figured you guys would have some sort of muscle in getting rid of that absolute virus on society. All right, well, let's get them on the show. Art Teacher Vino, thank you very much, sir. All right. You can find his podcast, the Crude Truth Podcast, and his day job, Pecos Country Energy. He's out in the oil patch doing some pumping for you. Coming up next on the James Show, let's get you all caught up on the redistricting issue because Jasmine Crockett was asked about it on MSNBC, and she had some strong words. And then Governor Abbott was asked to respond to that, and he had some strong words back at her. You'll hear them both next on the James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. And I think I'm getting tired of all the attention we're getting here in Texas over this redistricting fight, and then the Dodgers that left the state, and now they won't come back, but they'll leave videos on TikTok and Instagram. And so we're going to threaten to arrest them, but they're not ever going to get arrested. And now we've called a new special session. And it's kind of getting tiring here. If they're not going to get arrested, if no one's going to get arrested, if no one's going to lose their seat, then this really is just a whole bunch of theater, because it doesn't feel like any of the results are going to change. And the good news is the skepticism, if this is borne out in reality, means we are going to get the new maps. The redistricting is going to happen. The Trump and the Republicans are going to get a win over the Democrats, if you care about such things. But the fact that it's not changing the result of what's going to happen, and leaves the door open for this to happen in future sessions, I think is a half failure. Right now, they should be talking about drafting bills and submitting them and saying, okay, if you abandon your seat, you're now in violation of some law and you can go to jail. Or if you abandon your seat, then you're automatically vacated from your seat and the governor gets to appoint your replacement, or a special election is held immediately before we start the next special session. Could have happened, because we actually had the governor right before the James Show started today make it official. There's going to be a second special session. So we'll end this one with something called Sign Die. And we'll just immediately start the second one. Second verse, same as the first, which that metaphor means the governor has to call out what the special session has to cover. And so he's like, I'm just going to repeat what the first session did, and we'll wait for these guys to come back. The way this is playing out in social media, you can almost write these tweets yourself. 2 hours before the James Show started, Greg Abbott, our governor, said Democrats can run to another state, but they can't outrun the will of Texans. If there's no quorum Friday, special session 2 will start immediately after Sign Die. Same agenda with potential to add more. I'll call special after special until the Texas first agenda is passed. Sign Die just means indefinitely. There's not like a set date. And so I think this will happen, go into effect on Friday, and we'll start a new special session on Monday, and we'll just see what happens from there here. But look, you're going to keep calling special session after special session until the Texas first agenda is passed. How about we arrest these people, or how about we vacate their seats? That would be something different. Why are we just going to do the same thing? Because at this point, even if you call special session after special session and eventually they come back and you get your maps, what's their incentive to not do this in future sessions? None. So I don't just want to solve the problem here and just get our precious maps passed and that's it. That's all we worry about. I think there's quite a good cause and an opportunity here to make sure this doesn't happen more in the future. So Attorney General Ken Paxton tweeted an hour before the James Show started. He says, I'm taking action to hold Robert Francis O'Rourke. And I love that because that's Beto's real name. He's just trying to be Hispanic. Oh, Robert Francis? Robert Francis doesn't sound very Hispanic. O'Rourke. My God, he sounds like the name of that's probably the real name of the leprechaun on a Lucky Charms box. Robert Francis O'Rourke. No, we call him Beto. I'm Beto. I'm in an alt band. I ride my skateboard at Whataburger. I'm Beto. But no, back to the tweet here. He says, I'm taking action to hold Robert Francis O'Rourke in contempt for violating a court order and scamming Texans. Beto is about to find out that running your mouth and ignoring the rule of law has consequences in Texas. It's time to lock him up. I like the sound of that now. Go lock him up. Go ahead. Take off. Get him. So the redistricting fight continues to roll along, and we still haven't seen a single Texas Democrat arrested or removed from their seat. We still haven't seen a law even proposed aimed at stopping this stunt in the future. And so if you want to take off your hat, your whatever team red or team blue hat on, just look at this as an independent observer. The clearly the GOP House leadership, not all the Republican voters and the people who support them or the people who volunteer as their precinct chair or fundraise for them or do calls for them. Talking about the capital R Republican leadership in the House of Representatives in Austin. They're complicit. They could up this. They could at least make some sort of attempt to vacate their seats or punish them in something other than a financial paper cut. Oh, you have to come pick up your paper check in person. Both sides right now, they're play acting for media attention. Democrats, you too. Watch, they're going to come back. They're not going to stay out of the state forever. They're going to come back. The map's going to pass. And they did all this for nothing too. They just wanted you to think that they're fighting for the cause. But right now, it looks like two guys, two teams who are the two different sides of the same coin going to the same inevitable conclusion with no real changes happening to prevent this in the future. And look, I hate to be so negative here, but here's the scuttlebutt. You want to hear the rumor that's popping around Austin and keep showing up on social media? Look, I won't tell you. I'll let Brian Harrison, the state representative out of Midlothian, tell you.
A minute. Let me break something, Steve. Here, I actually have not said this.
I should tell you, this was on the Steve Bannon show.
A minute. Let me break something, Steve. Here, I actually have not said this publicly before. I'm going to break something to you right now. I cannot confirm this with metaphysical certitude here, but I have this from so many sources now that what's really going on and why they're throwing law enforcement under the bus is because the leadership in Texas, including law enforcement, knows where multiple of these Democrat members are, including Democrat members that are holed up in Texas where we have clear jurisdiction to arrest them, but that they have made the decision not to arrest them because of factors like their gender and their race. And that damn well better not be true, and we need to get to the bottom of this, but that is what I'm hearing from multiple sources now, is that they have decided intentionally not to arrest these Democrats and just hope they show up for the second special session. But that's the latest from here. Just a bunch of empty words, hot air, bad theater, no action, no results, and Texans deserve better.
And what does that mean? If we know that some of these people who fled the quorum are in Texas and they're not getting arrested right now, what does that mean? That means someone's in on it. Dustin Burrows or whoever's supposed to have these people arrested and they're not getting arrested. They're working together, aren't they? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, dueling sound bites between Jasmine Crockett and Governor Abbott is on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. We have a couple sound bites that you're going to love back to back. First off, Jasmine Crockett was asked to speak out, and this is not going to count as today's episode of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say this time. That's coming up in about an hour from now. Yeah, I got another sound bite for that. But this one's specifically about the redistricting part. Because this is the top story in Texas, at least politically speaking, and it now has nationwide attention. It keeps coming up on the TV, and other states are watching this because people like to follow what we do. And Jasmine is going to do a couple things. Number one, call it racist. Shocked. Oh, this is my shocked face. You know how shocked I'm. Oh my God, I'm so shocked. She's going to call something racist. But then also make a hoods reference. Okay.
No, it's not just even the fact that it's gerrymandering. I want to be clear. This is racial gerrymandering specifically in the state of Texas. This is just about fairness. It's about making sure that we honor our Constitution, because literally in the 15th Amendment, it is about making sure that all people have representation. And right now, African Americans are only going to have 1/5 of the voting power that they should have in the state of Texas under this map. And we know that our Latino brothers and sisters will only have 1/3 of the voting power. And frankly, Asians, which tend to be one of the fastest growing demographics in the state of Texas, have literally no power. When Trump came in the first time, they started to lift the hoods. Once Trump got in a second time, they decided the hoods were off.
Anglos.
Wait, so it's wrong to draw the lines based on racial characteristics? How'd she say that at the beginning?
No, it's not just even the fact that it's gerrymandering. I want to be clear. This is racial gerrymandering specifically in the state of Texas.
Yeah, racial gerrymandering. So when you draw the lines based on people's race, and then her solution was you got to redraw the lines based on these people's race the way I see fit. So you're doing racial gerrymandering too. Okay, everyone saw that. Kind of an obvious call. Greg Abbott was asked specifically about that soundbite this weekend. Here was his response.
It would not be a day that ends in the letter Y if Jasmine Crockett didn't say something racist. But second, her facts are wrong because the facts in the state of Texas are, under the maps that we are drawing, is that 4 of the new seats will be predominantly Hispanic seats. The problem that Democrats have in the state of Texas is Hispanics, black voters, and other voters, they have learned now that the ideas that Democrats stand for are contrary to the ideas that the Hispanic community and black community stand for. They all want secure borders. They don't want men and women's sports, and they want to support law enforcement. So it's a proven fact that minority voters chose to vote for Trump as well as other Republicans, but they are trapped in one of these gerrymandered districts that confines it only to electing a Democrat.
Okay, I'm convinced. You're right. Now, why aren't you arresting anyone? Why aren't you vacating their seats? Why is there going to be no real negative consequences that are visited upon these people? When you talk about the financial stuff, that means nothing. None of these people are going to lose their house. They're not going to get their car repoed. Their electricity is not going to get turned off. They're just going to have to make it up from some other donor or some other fundraiser coming up in the months ahead. And it's kind of like a red tape pain in the butt from a professional standpoint. But there's no real personal punishment. There's nothing here that would disincentivize this negative behavior in the future. So while what you're saying, I agree with, your actions are falling short. Some people need to start getting arrested, as in immediately. And I think a good start would be Beto. And part of the concern with the Beto situation is this would help him. Mark my words, I know that sounds weird. If he's smart, he wants to be arrested right now. He would love to have charges slapped on him. For what? For helping the fleeing Democrats, because then he can be the ultimate martyr. He can be, listen, I got thrown in jail trying to protect democracy, because that's how it's going to be spun. Remember, we're a threat to democracy. Democracy is at stake. Redrawing the maps is a threat to democracy. Okay, got it. But this would be good for him. Because really, what name a Beto accomplishment? I'm not trying to be a smart aleck here, and there's some people that might know. But for the most part, if you pull a person aside that's just walking down the sidewalk in your town right now, look out the window, that guy. If you asked him to name a Beto accomplishment, he couldn't. But if Beto gets himself arrested, he becomes a household name. He gets all kinds of praise that you couldn't buy. He's going to get media attention from here all the way to the national circuit. This will solidify him. So Beto was asked or told by the state to stop what you're doing. Don't be doing any of these fundraisers. Don't be helping out, paying the bills or the funds or whatever. Don't be raising money off of this or anything. And then what did he do this weekend? He went out and he went to a rally that, according to people who act like they know what they're talking about, I don't have a law degree. I don't know. I'm just reporting, passing along what I'm seeing here. Is they're saying the rally he went to broke some of the laws. He was raising money to give it to these people. And for some reason, they're saying that falls afoul of bribery. I mean, that doesn't sound right. But if that's true, then it could be this rally that he held this weekend, or he was a part of this weekend. And what was he doing at this rally? You didn't hear audio from this. He's out there promising amnesty. It's like, oh my goodness, man. If you're trying to help the Democrat brand, don't take the one issue that most people agree on Team Red and Team Blue. And that's the way illegal immigration has been treated differently over the last 6 months. And don't make that the flag that you wave to win people back. Here he is on Saturday.
The Democrats, present company excluded, have talked an awful good game on immigration for as long as I have been listening. You know, if you just keep voting for us, once we get in power, comprehensive immigration reform. Well, we won power in 2008, the White House, the House, and the Senate. We won power in 2020, the White House, the House, and the Senate. The American people were watching because we had promised them what we would do with that power, and we absolutely failed to live up to the expectation that we set. So next time we win power, we're going to drive that car like we stole it. We're going to legalize every dreamer's parents, every hardworking American doing backbreaking work that makes this country so God great in the first place, even greater as U.S. citizens.
And I was editing out a bad word. He didn't actually float an air biscuit in the speech there.
Anglo.
Real quick on the phones. Mark, Fort Worth, you're on WBAP.
Hey, James, just wanted to offer this. You know, as far as a lack of a Republican response or a perceived lack of response, you know, you might consider this is sort of a political bonanza for Republicans in that, you know, Democrats continue to hang themselves and not really understand why and how they lost the last election so hugely. So obviously, you know, amongst the party faithful, those are going to split down, you know, the lines that one would expect. But the battle is and always has been for independent voters. And amongst independent voters, you know, Republicans made great gains. So by not sort of going in and arresting everyone and sort of doing a heavy-handed response, they're sort of playing rope-a-dope and let the Democrats hang themselves further. And knowing that ultimately, you know, redistricting is going to pass regardless of the theatrics. The Democrats continue to do just damage to their brand, and Republicans really don't have to do much.
Well, Mark, I think that's a theory that can't be proven or disproven, but I think it's more right than wrong. I kind of agree with you there, Mark. Thank you very much for calling, sir. Good point.
Sure, no worries.
All right. Coming up next on the James Show, Trump is deploying the National Guard in D.C. Will it work? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. So let's talk about the National Guard being deployed in D.C. First, I think we all agree that D.C.'s crime rate higher than most towns, and some metrics the worst in the country, and it would be nice if it was lower. It's also, as libertarian as I am about, government overreach and stay within the confines of their power, well, this is the one town that the federal government actually does have control over. I have no problems with them sending in whoever they want into D.C. The federal government, really the executive branch of the federal government, really runs that place, and that's okay because that's how it was written in the Constitution. It's supposed to be 10 square miles, and then for some reason we lost the Virginia side of it that's a whole nother show. So it's really just the rump, the what's left over part of what was supposed to be the 10 square mile, just on the Maryland side of the original plans. So really you could make the case that he could send in the National Guard to like Arlington Cemetery and Cemetery and the parts that were on the other side of the river too, but let's not get too far in the weeds here. Let's just deal with what we have at hand. So we were hearing yesterday, well, the reasoning for this and what do they plan to do? Well, there's a twofold. There's a two-prong approach that they talked about in the press conference yesterday. Donald Trump talked about putting troops on the street and getting more people out there to clean the place up and lessen crime and show a police presence and try and get people to act right. The other approach is Jeanine Pirro, old Judge Jeanine from the Fox Weekend show and sometimes a guest elsewhere. She's going to be the prosecutor there, and they're going to take a look at what they can do about things like cashless bail and other just absolutely terrible ideas that they think are contributing to the decay of civil society outside of the Capitol in D.C. Now, my experience in D.C. is quite limited. I've been a couple times, and both times was for work, and the only time I got outside of that little area where the Capitol and the White House and what's that, George Washington, the college just right next to the White House. I only ventured outside of that in D.C. proper one time because I misread the directions. Apparently there's like streets repeat. There's like two different E streets, and then there's two different 19th streets. There's the east and a west. And so I was either on the wrong 19th or on the wrong E, and I ended up in a terrible neighborhood. So that's as close as I've seen. Now, the one time when I went, it was because I was working on a different radio company, and the guy who comes on after us was doing some speech with Tom DeLay at George Washington. We all got invited, and we were going to do our shows from there and whatnot. And he drove in from New York, and he was very New York City. He was very careful to get in a nice parking garage right next to George. It's like kind of corner to George Washington University and the property where the White House itself is. And he drove his Jeep down, and it has a ragtop. And he's like, "Yeah, I had to park it 6 stories up in the most expensive parking garage I could find, or else if I left it just on the street, somebody would come by and knife it and just steal the change out of the console." And so we went out, and when we got back the next day, we were all doing our like radio setup stuff. It turns out someone had actually gone into the garage, knifed open the ragtop on his Jeep, and stole the change out of his console, just like he had joked about the night before. So, okay, in my tiny little experience, it's really bad in D.C. And the weird part is how drastically it changes. You go across the river into the Arlington. I was in Old Town Arlington at the NRA studios. Awesome. Looked like a movie set. It's all brownstone sidewalks. They got brick streets. There's trees that are growing up that look like they're artificial intelligence. They're so perfect. So we know it doesn't have to be awful around there. It's only awful, not in the suburbs, but in this tiny little area that these nerds in D.C. control. And remember, the voting public of D.C., the people who are choosing their leaders, are the same people who reelected Marion Barry to the city council after he got caught with a prostitute and smoking crack rocks on camera. So there's nothing constitutional that's bothering me about it. There's nothing about the function or the reason why they're trying to go in. Yeah, that's a terrible place with an absurdly high murder rate. and I'd like to see something done about it. Like to see something done about bail reform. Like to see something done about light sentencing and the light hand of the justice system. If we can help, cool. I guess the real concern some people might have is that, well, he might do this in other cities. Well, he might not. But that's Karen Bass was talking about her experience with the National Guard being deployed in LA, and she was saying they were a test case.
You absolutely expect a federal response when we have over 200 countries here, meaning heads of state of over 200 countries. Of course you have the military involved. That is routine. But that is not the military driving up and down the streets of the city like, unfortunately, the Marines did. You remember, we didn't just have 4,000 National Guard members. We also had I think it was about 700 U.S. Marines. Completely inappropriate, a political stunt. And that was not needed. And I believed then, and I believe now, that Los Angeles was a test case. And I think D.C. is a test case as well, for the president to say, well, we can take over your city whenever we want, and I'm the commander in chief, and I can use the troops whenever we want. I think that that is an abuse of our troops, and I think it's an overreach of presidential powers for the president to literally take over law enforcement in a city that has not requested the help.
All right, so there's both sides of the argument. Do you think this is the right thing to do? Do you think it'll work? Do you think this is really just a test case and Donald Trump's going to start taking over other major cities after this? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, will the new crackdown on crime affect your life here in North Texas? Chris Oliveras from DPS next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Welcome back to the big show. Well, a lot going on. I've got a lot of good questions for a DPS officer. Lieutenant Chris Oliveris is coming back on from the Texas Department of Public Safety. Welcome back, sir. First thing I want to ask you about, President Trump ordered to crack down on Mexican cartels, and we have a lot of cartel activity that's sort of intermingled in regular old Texas society. Is this going to affect us here in North Texas any? Well, you're a DPS officer. What's your thoughts on the DC takeover by the feds? Well, that was kind of my next question. Will it work? And you just kind of sort of answered that anyway. Thank you very much. I appreciate the insight from the DPS. Lieutenant Chris Oliveris on the James Show. Thank you, sir. All right, what do you think? 800-288-9227. Are you okay with what Trump's doing in D.C.? This is Donna in Dallas. You're on WBAP. Oh, you're listening to the radio. Turn off the radio. Talk to your phone. All right, well, we'll come back to her then when she figures it out. Jason, Flower Mound, you're on WBAP. Go.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me because the they're not really taking over any city. In Los Angeles, they were interfering with government function on ICE. So even the National Guard troops out there were not for the purpose of doing anything for law enforcement other than to establish safe zones.
I know, but they've got to treat him like Hitler, bro. They've got to, everything's Hitler, everything's scary and fascist and radical takeover and unprecedented.
Well, technically, he could actually establish martial law in D.C., but he hadn't done that.
Yeah. So, what's the holdup? What's your reservation about this?
Reservation's just timing on this. I'm not quite sure why now. I mean, when they say crime is down 30% in D.C., that's very misleading because if you don't prosecute shoplifting and you don't prosecute marijuana possession or whatever, you're going to have an instantaneous drop in crime. The question is what is the actual drop in violent crime? In Washington, D.C., it's still very, very high on violent crimes. In fact, didn't a senator get attacked up there recently or a congressman?
Yeah, we've had a few instances. Also, the D.C. guy that shot the two Jewish diplomats, like right outside of the museum. There was the guy that was in Doge that got mugged. Not Big Balls, but I think it was a different one. And so there's also the point that gets brought up when they bring out the chart. They're like, "Yeah, this is the lowest it's been in 30 years." Well, no, not the lowest it's been. There was a nice little span there where it was lower about 10, 15 years ago. So I don't know. It depends on what you measure, how you measure it, what time scale you choose. And just like almost anything, statistics can be manipulated by either side to sort of tell a different story. But to act like,
one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it's just a warning. If you want to defund the police, we got the National Guard we can bring in too.
Yeah, I mean, I always like the part where if you're suffering because of your bad policies, we should let you suffer good and hard for it. Keep defunding the police. See what happens. Anyway, that's probably a little crude for statecraft, but I think it would work. 800-288-9227. Are you okay with Trump and the National Guard occupying D.C.? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Welcome back to the big show. And the thing you're supposed to be scared about, the thing that makes Trump just so Hitler today, is that he's using the National Guard troops in D.C. They're going to take a review, take over some of the functions there that seem to be failing the citizens of D.C. And while they don't actually have the argument against it for now, he has the right to do it. You know, they're saying, well, crime's not really that bad. Okay. Well, he doesn't need to do it. Okay. Well, he could do this in other cities. Okay. That all sounds fine to me. It doesn't bother me a bit. 800-288-9227. Your thoughts on Trump taking over D.C. Donna in Dallas, you're on WBAP.
Hello. No, I do not think that anything he's doing is incorrect or wrong. It would be anything he was doing they would think was incorrect or wrong. If I was living in that, I think that our capital should be known as someplace to come and be safe. And I don't know why nobody else thought about it until just now. But it's because it's him that we're going to have a heart attack over it. So go for it, in my opinion.
So the question becomes, how long does he leave them in there? Like, what's the metric of success where you turn it back over to the locals?
I mean, I don't know. You know, they're making up the crime. Everybody's making up the crime numbers, and I'm assuming he's going to be able to tell that things are improving. I would think when you have the National Guard there that people are going to be a little bit more on their best behavior. But I don't think it'll take them too long to figure it out. But I think just the presence there and knowing that he meant to do something and he actually did it, that I think is going to make a big difference.
Well, I've also
do that anywhere.
I think a lot of us were burned during COVID when they didn't ever give us like a goalpost. Like, okay, we're going to be locked down to slow the spread. Okay, but what does that look like? Is it a number of cases per day? Is it a number of deaths per day? Is it a number of people vaccinated? What metric are you using to measure success so I know when this thing is supposed to end? And I don't know what the answer is for this DC thing. So I would like to know that. I would like for them to come out and say that. But other than that, this is constitutionally sound. I think it might help. I'm not. Let me give the other side here. And thank you very much for your call, Donnie. You're making all good points there. So let me play a little devil's advocate and just, I'm not being a butthead. I'm just trying to flesh out the negatives on this. Because I think worst case scenario is he's going to send the troops into D.C. and he's going to send in the National Guard and he's going to have Jeanine Pirro try and rat out some terrible jurisprudence in the court system. But what if it doesn't help? You know, what if this is just something that even if the troops are there, the second you pull them out, does the criminality return immediately? Because there's the deal of dealing with the criminals as they are now. There's also the process by which you arrange society so you'll have fewer criminals in the future. And so, look, the criminals that are already produced, we know how to deal with them. We go catch them, we put them in handcuffs, and we put them in a box for a very long time. But that's a temporary solution if there's more criminals that are just coming up behind them, that are graduating into adulthood every day there. And so I don't know if this is going to do anything to address the fact that new criminals are in the making as it stands and, you know, the failed parts of our society. And it's in the failed parts of any society. This isn't a white thing, black thing, urban thing, rural thing. There's just going to be some dedicated percentage of different demographics that are going to be failures. They're going to be addicts. They're going to be criminals. They're going to be thieves. They're going to be really stupid in the bell curve of IQ, and there's nothing you can do about it. These people are always going to be with us. Is there a way that we can, number one, minimize their creation, and number two, minimize their negative impact once they're created? And I think we're only dealing with half of that equation here. And so if you wanted me to play devil's advocate and try and tear this apart and come up with something critical of this, I think at best you're dealing with something that is a symptom of a bigger problem that's not being dealt with. And it all comes back to something cultural. It all comes back to, you know, the lack of family formation, the destruction of the nuclear family, the destruction of the biological mother and father unit. But there's no unit of the military that you can send in to fix that. There's no judge that you can fire and replace to fix that. This is a problem that's not necessarily with the way we've arranged government, but a way we've rearranged our society and our culture. And that's not going to be so easy to fix. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you'll hear from a bank rate analyst about the new inflation numbers that came out today, and back to school shopping may hit you a little bit harder this year. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, football fans, I know you're excited like I am that football is back. For a lot of people, hey, that means it's time to whip out the old Prize Picks app and take advantage of the sports that you're already going to be watching anyway. Because look, if you're going to be watching the pros, you can bet Dak Prescott is going to be on there. You look at his statistics, like in yardage, 245. Is he going to throw more or less than that against Philly? Boom, you got that set up. And you can cross over into other leagues. Like you can have the quarterback for the Cowboys, and then you can have the quarterback for your favorite college team. Arch Manning is also on the Prize Picks app. You can just pick more on both of their passing yard totals, and that's a whole lineup right there. But you can do 2 to 6 people. The more people you pick, the bigger your prizes get. And look, if you get your picks right, you can win up to 2,000 times your money. So if you're new to this, I'll get you started easy. Download the Prize Picks app. When it's time to put in the promo code, use the name of the station, WBAP. And with that first $5 lineup, you get $50 in promo cash, which is stuff you can play with. And if you win with it, you can actually withdraw it after you turn it into real money. So check it out and play on our dime. Check it out just in time for your favorite quarterbacks to get started. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP. Get $50 in promo cash with your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. School starts for the Parker kiddos tomorrow. And I can already tell you back to school shopping was a little bit more expensive this year than it was last year. Walmart got me good. I got 4 kids and it was about $300. I know. Ted Rossman, bank rate analyst, coming on the James Show to break down, just starting with like the official number, a little more official than James felt like it was more. The inflation number came out today and it's still running a little hot, but less than expected. Your thoughts? Well, I remember there was the COVID years, and whenever we came out of that weird fog, I remember the prices seemed to have jumped. And we haven't seen as big of a jump really in the last couple of years, but I still feel like it's getting a little worse every year, Ted. Oh, that's never going to happen, right? All right. Well, we're talking with Ted Rossman, bank rate analyst, about the cost of really just inflation hitting you from all directions here. Now, Ted, I'm going to be pessimistic on inflation until we do something about the deficit. As long as we're printing an extra $2 trillion a year, I don't expect this to ever be anything decent or below 2%. Yeah, well, don't talk to me about that. I've got one of those amazing COVID mortgages at 3%, sir. So I'll just keep that as long as I can. Ted Rossman, bank rate analyst. Thank you very much for being on the James Show, sir. All right, and good luck with the back to school shopping, y'all. You do not have to get her a North Face backpack just so she's one of the cool kids at school. You know, it works just as well as a North Face backpack. When you go to the Buc-ee's and they have those hot and cold bags, the one that have like the foil on the inside and it looks like a regular shopping bag with a zipper on top, that works just as good. Yeah, I know your daughter looks like a pauper, but it's important to teach her thrift, efficiency. All right, hey, Rangers fans out there, Texas Rangers are taking on the Cleveland Guardians Saturday, August 23rd at Globe Life Field. The first 20,000 fans in attendance to this game are going to get a miniature replica of Adrian Beltre's newly unveiled statue presented by Globe Life. So if you want to get a miniature replica of the new Beltre statue, you got to go to Globe Life Field to the game that's coming up on August 23rd. Now, you can go ahead and go buy your tickets right now at texasrangers.com, or if inflation's been kicking you in the teeth, try and win a pair from us. Text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. It's the same phone number I give out for if you want to call into the show. So if you have it saved in your phone or if you've ever called before, you can just go grab that number. Text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. All right, coming up next on The James Show, you're going to get an episode of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say this time, but it's going to be an extended edition because over the weekend, the New York Post put out a story on Jasmine Crockett where they supposedly talked to some of her staffers and former staffers, and they were saying she may be a nightmare boss to work for, which is a convenient narrative for those of us who already make fun of her, but is it true? Details next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 99.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Now, in today's episode, what the heck did Jasmine Crockett say this time? This is going to be an extended episode, but there's actually going to be a good lesson at the end of this. It's going to be like at the end of G.I. Joe, where now you know, and knowing is half the battle. But let's go ahead and start with the funny part before we get to the learning part.
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Governor Hot Wheels. And he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
All right, Jasmine Crockett stuck up for John Cornyn. Seriously, I just wanted that to settle in. What? Hang on. The Republican senator from Texas had some nice words said about him by the Democrat representative here in downtown Dallas, where I'm sitting right now. I am in Jasmine Crockett's district. She said nice things about Cornyn. Is she trying to get him to lose his next election? I mean, if you've ever seen some red flags about John Cornyn, how he supports weird gun control, how he always votes to raise the debt ceiling, and other complaints that you have about this guy, now you can add to that, Jasmine Crockett said nice things about him. What the heck?
Senator John Cornyn has asked the FBI to get involved and find, arrest, or bring back the Texas legislators.
Yeah, this is interesting. Clearly, my senator. Now, listen, I'm about to tell all of MSNBC a secret. I actually don't hate Senator Cornyn at all. And right now, what we have is a senator who actually is a real Republican who's doing everything that he can to make it seem like he's a MAGA Republican so that he can get through his primary. But Senator Cornyn, this is not him. This is somebody that sat on our Supreme Court in the state of Texas. This is somebody who typically works in a very bipartisan way, unlike Senator Cruz. This is somebody who is literally doing everything that he can to hopefully get some of that MAGA base that is riled up to vote for our corrupt attorney general, because now I'm convinced the only way that you can succeed with MAGA is you got to cheat on your wife. You got to have some felonies hanging over your head. You got to do something that makes you a little saucy before they will get behind you. And that's exactly who A.G. Paxton is. And unfortunately, he is consistently leading in the primary polls on the Republican side. And so Senator Cornyn knows that the FBI can't get involved and ain't gonna get involved as it relates to some little civil situation that was signed off on by the Speaker of the Texas House. But the MAGA base won't know that.
Wow. How you like that, John Cornyn? She thinks she's helping him. She thinks she's helping John Cornyn. And that should tell you a lot. Jasmine Crockett looks at the two people who are running for senator, Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, and she went to John Cornyn. She didn't say, pox on both of them, or they're Republicans, so I hope they both lose. No. She was actually not even saying he's the lesser of the two evils. She was saying, I'm not going to say anything bad about him. Wow. Ken Paxton. Or I don't know if he's listening, but people who work for him, work with him, there's your next ad right there. There's your next campaign ad. You can go viral with that. You know why you should vote for me? Because Jasmine Crockett says, vote for my opponent. And that's not going to win you over with Democrats. But in the primaries, for the people who go to the primaries, that's going to be a winning message. Now, over the weekend, the New York Post put out an article that seemed a little harsh on Jasmine Crockett. And I think it is a little harsh. And I'm going to half defend her on this, but it's only halfway. The headline, though, is brutal. New York Post, in a story by Stephen Nelson, wrote, Trump critic Rep. Jasmine Crockett is a no-show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers. Aides say all diva, no wow. So you had the profile from The Atlantic a couple weeks ago, and that was fun because it wasn't meant to be a hit piece. It's from a platform that's definitely sympathetic to Team Blue over Team Red. And she tried to shut it down because they asked her a bunch of questions about some of her dealings with fellow congressmen. And then they contacted the fellow congressmen to get their sides of the story. And she called back. She's like, you didn't tell me you were going to talk to them. I withdraw my permission and want to shut this whole story down. Well, that's not how it works. It came out and it wasn't that great. This actually looks like a straight up hit piece, though. This makes no bones about, trying to find a balance here. Well, that's what some maybe formal disgruntled people say. But let me read a couple excerpts out of this, and we'll get to the lessons learned by this on the other side of the break. Rep. Jasmine Crockett, here at the beginning, it says, Rep. Jasmine Crockett has positioned herself as an unfiltered critic of President Trump, earning regular TV appearances and an enthusiastic online following. But congressional aides tell the Post that the Dallas Democrat is just as rude and mean to her own staff. Now, they claim that they have 3 sources here that have worked for Jasmine Crockett. They say she's rarely present. She doesn't come to the office very often. She seems to be more concerned with media attention. And I got news for you. That's the smart thing to do if you're a congressman. They gripe in this article about when she does show up for work. She's more concerned about, does she have a nice ride? And she has a staffer come and pick her up and drop her off instead of driving herself. And he can't pick her up and drop her off in his own car. They got to rent a car every week in DC, and it's got to be like an Escalade or something. So you can tell she kind of enjoys the power. She kind of enjoys the luxury. She kind of enjoys, the accommodations and the preening over her and being the center of attention. And I got to tell you, that's the most normal thing in the world. That doesn't make her look bad in my eyes. I still don't agree with her policy decisions. But do you know how many people like this are in Congress? And there's varying degrees of it, but it's most of them. Look, this is one of the problems you have with democratically elected representatives is you have a popularity contest. And so now not only is the system not very different than picking a prom king and a prom queen, it also attracts the exact wrong type of candidate. You are attracting the people who really want this job, or the people who love that. People who love being driven around. People who love being on MSNBC and telling people what to do. The people who do have other folks making fuss over them. They have a staff. They ride in the back seat while someone else drives them in the front seat. They don't even know the driver's name. That's how powerful they are. And they get to go to all the fancy parties with all the fancy people, and they get to be on the fancy TV shows and go to the fancy... It attracts the wrong people. This is who these jobs attract. And so once you realize that, look, while it seems just totally weird to us for someone to be that whipped up by power, that intoxicated by their own power, they insist on such luxuries and being treated and waited on and having a staff that attends to them. That's weird for you. That's normal in DC. That's normal in Austin. So if you read this and you're like, oh, Jasmine Crockett, what a weirdo. We got to get her out of there. That is not the message. I'll tell you the real lesson we need to learn from this, because I don't want to fix the symptom of this problem. I want to fix the actual cure the disease itself. And we'll talk about that next on the James Show. This New York Post unfavorable piece on Jasmine Crockett. The lesson's coming next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. If you're just joining us, you're in the middle of today's episode of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time? And we were going a little deeper here because, there was the obvious funny audio clip that comes with every episode. But we have morphed into this article that came out on the New York Post. Definitely a hit piece, but at the end of last week, the New York Post said that they had talked to some staffers, some Jasmine Crockett staffers, who said some not very nice things about her. And granted, when you go through here and you check it out, it doesn't sound like it's great. It doesn't sound very nice. However, for me and my experience and observation in Congress and congressmen and as many of these people as I've met and talked to and hung out with, this is pretty normal behavior for a congressman. This is normal. And look, who do you think wants to go to Congress? Because I come on here and I talk about these affairs of statecraft on a regular basis, and people every once in a while, I think they're just being nice. I don't think anyone really thinks I'd be a good congressman. They're like, you should run for office. You should run for Congress. I don't want to do that. Number one, I'm not into telling people what to do. I have 4 kids, and 2 of them really love telling people what to do. 2 of them don't. So there's like just a personality trait that I don't have. I don't enjoy telling people what to do. Like if I'm on a jury, I don't want to be the foreman. If I'm on a sporting team, I don't want to be the coach. I don't like telling people what to do. I am not drawn to power. I don't want someone driving me around. I think that'd be weird as hell. But guess who is drawn to these positions? People who love power. People who love power are going to love also, exerting that power. Dare I say, abusing that power. But don't come away from this and your lesson is, oh, Jasmine Crockett is a terrible person. No. That's not the lesson here. Number one, I don't think it's true. I don't think she is a terrible person. I do think that some people have this weird intoxication when they get next to power. They think it's cool to be driven around. Okay, I understand those people exist, and that doesn't make them a bad person. But look, let me steer this lesson here into what I think we should learn from this. We already know that the incentive for congressmen isn't to go into work every day and write the best laws, or to know everything about every bill, or even to know what's even in the bills, or even to read the bills before they vote on them. If they read all the bills, are they more or less likely to get reelected? Makes no difference, does it? So their incentive structure, and we're not going to change this, their incentive structure is to get media attention, to either raise their profile or at least maintain their seat. But if they want to get to that next level, they got to get more media. They also have to raise money for their next campaign. That's it. That's their only incentive, and there's no laws that we can pass that are going to change that. This is a shortcoming that is just inherent in the democratic system, which is why we don't have a flat-out pure democracy. We have a republic where when the founding fathers set it up, this was the only sect, this was the only tiny piece of all of D.C. that was elected this way, the House of Representatives. The senators didn't used to be directly elected by the voters, making it a popularity contest, or they have to go fundraise and they have to get media attention and say wild things. They used to be voted on by the state legislatures. Now, if that's the case, then in order for you to be the next senator, it doesn't matter what your media profile is. It doesn't matter how much money you've raised in your campaign. There is no campaign. You just have to make sure you're doing a good job so the state senators or state representatives in your home state will send you back there. You have to keep them happy. And so that changes the dynamic big time. But what we've done is we've taken the shortcomings that are in the House of Representatives and we've added them to the Senate. So we lost an advantage in the Senate. And then we've basically turned in the presidential election into the same thing. I know we have the Electoral College. So what you have is, instead of one big popularity contest, you have an amalgamation of 50 popularity contests, which gives you the same problems. Now, your path to power is raising money and positive media attention, not how good you govern. I don't know where we lost this. I don't know how we've all gone to school and read about what the original Electoral College is and not thought, hey, maybe we should return to that. Because the original intent the electoral college is not that every state gets to get, the number of votes that's in their congressional representative pool, and that'll count as their vote to the larger election. The point of the electoral college is to vote not for the candidate that's going to be president, but vote for the committee that's going to get together and choose the candidate. And that is the only way, if you're not directly electing people, if you're electing them through electors, that you're not going to get someone in office who is there because he chased it, because he wanted it, because he barnstormed and he raised money and he got media. No, we need to get a bunch of eggheads and vote for people that we think is smart. I imagine for some people they'd like to go in and in Texas you would vote for like a Joe Rogan or an Elon Musk or some of these other men of state that have accomplished something here in Texas. Like a Michael Dell or Ross Perot Jr. or like a Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. You would pick these people. You'd pick a Brian Harrison. And then they would get into a room and they would decide who would be the best president and they would vote on it. And you would end up picking someone that didn't raise a dime for his campaign because there was no campaign, which means what? He can't have been bought off. He is not subservient to the corporate interest. He is not subservient to the lobbyist. He is not subservient to the defense contractors, the evil military industrial complex that even Eisenhower warned us about. He won't owe them anything. He might not even want to be president. And that's exactly the type of person that should be president. We should have a bunch of eggheads who we agree with, who are going to go get in a room, and they're either going to choose someone out of the egghead pool that's in the room, or maybe some egghead that's not even an elector. And we'll get some probably thought-filled guy. Someone who's a little deeper. And say what you want about Donald Trump or Joe Biden, or you can even go backwards, Barack Obama or George W. Bush. I mean, these are not like the deepest thinkers in a nation of 330 million people that we have to offer. They all spoke on an 8th grade reading level, nothing above that. And it all seems to be just the same old, same old. Government keeps growing at about the same rate. Your taxes stay about the same. Your freedom gets curtailed little by little every year. And we're doing the same thing, expecting a different result. No, that's the lesson of this New York Post expose. Isn't that Jasmine Crockett? We need to kick her out of office. She's doing a terrible job. No, that's normal for DC. Because the other lesson in here is, why are we giving people who this is their incentive structure and this is how they live their life, why are we giving them so much power? The Founding Fathers didn't. They had a constitution where in Article 1, Section 8 gave them 23 things that they can vote on. And somewhere, subsequent generations decided that we're going to directly elect most of the people in D.C., and then we're going to let them pass laws on just about any damn thing, education or healthcare or retirement pensions or all these other expansions of their power for people who certainly don't deserve it. So that's my lesson. We got to get away from this straight up democracy thing and just recognize that shortcoming is always going to be there, but it should only be restricted to people in the House of Representatives. It shouldn't be happening to people in the Senate, and it shouldn't be happening to people who run for president. That's my lesson. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, CNN did a special on the dangers of Christian nationalism. We get it, CNN. You hate Christianity. That's coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. How are you doing? Hey, coming up on the James Show, we're going to talk about the Yellowstone sequel that's going to be here in North Texas. Find out where in the next segment. But in this one, I saw CNN over the weekend. I saw this floating around on social media, and I clicked this video, and I just kept watching it. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. CNN was doing some special programming on Christian nationalism, and they were just doing their best to make you look like a freak. Well, I'm assuming you're a Christian. I'm a Christian. They were doing their best to make us look like a bunch of freaks. And it almost seems like after I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch about 9 minutes of it. I watched like 2 whole segments between the commercials. And I was thinking, what was the pre-show meeting here when they were putting together this special program? Hey, we're doing a special on Christian nationalism. Oh, okay. Christian nationalism. So like the politics of evangelicals. Yeah. So there's your first, I always find that to be a red flag. When someone is referring to a group of Christians as evangelicals, I know they're from the outside. I don't call myself an evangelical. I think they would call me evangelical. Hey, what kind of Christian are you? Baptist? So what do they mean by evangelical? They don't ever say like our actual denominations. They don't say Methodist or Presbyterian or even Protestant. It's evangelical or Catholic. That's all they got. So that's the first warning sign. But it sounds like in this, like the editing meeting where they were putting this whole thing together, they're like, go find the people who would call themselves Christian nationalists that have the most distasteful beliefs in the court of public opinion, and let's interview them. And then let's only interview them about the things that could be found reprehensible by the general public. Don't talk about the charitable works that Christians do. Don't talk about Samaritan's Purse that helps with everything from the Ebola virus to the Texas flooding that just happened in Kerrville. Don't talk about that. Just as bad as you can get it. Let's make them look as freaky and terrible as possible. It's like, okay, I got it. Look, let's just run through a minute or so of this so you know what I'm talking about.
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls.
I'm here as a working journalist, and I'm a mom of 3.
Good for you.
Is that an issue for you?
No, it's not automatically an issue.
Josh and Amy's friends, along with their 4 kids, moved here from Washington State.
You hear how loaded the questions are? Oh, so you're saying women are just here to have babies? No. You're saying women are just a vessel? No. Oh, so what about me? I'm a working mom. Does that make me a bad person? Dude, calm down. They're falling all over themselves to put some sort of negative spin on this, to intentionally misinterpret it so the general public can find it distasteful. So people on the fence, this is just political propaganda. And it's amazing because, like, when we have the Sharia city that's being proposed, we have a bunch of them here in Texas. Anyone ever pull aside a bunch of Muslim nationalists and ask them about their sensitive views on a woman's role in the household? No? That's weird. You think that'd be a big deal? You know, because Christian nationalists, they're so evil and scary. Oh, really? Do we do honor killings on our women when they don't behave properly? On our daughters when they don't behave properly? Are we really that bad? For all the shootings that happen in the major metropolitan areas on a daily basis, any of them by Christian nationalists? When someone put together a flamethrower and was burning Jews in Colorado, was that Christian nationalist? When someone shot the 2 Jewish people coming out of the museum in D.C. last month, was that Christian nationalists? No. What about all these other acts of violence? What about the people throwing bricks at ICE officers when they're doing their job? No, not Christian nationalists. What about when they shot ICE officers in Alvarado and McAllen? Were they Christian nationalists? What about when someone gets upset about some death at the hands of police and people are looting a Foot Locker and throwing the bricks through the windows of stores all downtown? Christian nationalists? Is that who's getting the flash mobs together and absolutely ransacking your local Walgreens so much so they got to lock everything up? Is that why they're having to send in the National Guard to D.C.? It's because all of the crime, street crime from Christian nationalists? Christian nationalists aren't perfect. I don't agree with everything they say. I'm far more libertarian, politically speaking, than they are. But of all the things we need to be scared of in modern American society, CNN choosing Christian nationalists is ridiculous. I mean, there's not a group that's committing. Is there a group that's committing less crime out there? Is there a safer group of people to be around? I mean, maybe the Mormons, but it's pretty close. Are they causing our problems, Christian nationalists, or is our problems caused by people who are overwhelmingly from broken homes, born out of wedlock or raised by a single mom or by a step parent? You know, the people that stray away from these Christian values, are they more or likely to end up in prison? Are they more likely to commit a violent crime? Are they more likely to end up being a prostitute or a rapist or on drugs or homeless or any metric of the human condition? And you're going out there and you're doing scare stories on Christian nationalists. This is just like the Christian Baker thing. Yeah, I disagree with the guy that wouldn't make the gay wedding cake. I would make a gay wedding cake if I was a baker. But he should have the right to do that. And did y'all go into any Muslim bakeries during this little rash that y'all were finding Christians to persecute and ask them to make a gay wedding cake? Because Steven Crowder did. Do you know the comedian Steven Crowder? He lives in Dallas now. He's originally Canadian, but he does a great little podcast and a show where he dressed up and he went into Muslim bakeries asking them to make a gay wedding cake, and he got turned down. And then he turned over all of these tapes from, I think it was like 6 different Muslim bakers, to all of the outlets that were running stories about the evil Christian anti-gay baker. None of them picked up his story. Your selective outrage is telling. You don't like Christian nationalists. We get it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, good news about a Yellowstone sequel in our own backyard on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. If you're not excited, you should be excited for our neighbors down in Ferris. Ferris, Texas is going to be the site of the next Yellowstone. I guess is this a sequel? I don't know. So I'm late to the game when it comes to Yellowstone, and that's all right because I ended up getting lucky in the situation I'm in now. Is because Yellowstone came out and it was a thing, and a couple seasons, whatever. And then they came out with the prequels, 1883, and then what's the other one, like 1921 or something. Don't at me, I don't need to know, it's not important. So I thought, well, since me and Miss Parker are late to the Yellowstone game, hi, Miss Parker, we can actually watch it in chronological order. So I watched 1883, and I've seen the first season of the one with Harrison Ford and what's that other lady, Helen Mirren? So the 1921. And as soon as we finish that, because I think there's another season or two that has to come out, then we're going to actually get caught up and watch the original Yellowstone. And then we'll have something to watch after that. So that's super cool. By the way, 1883 was amazing. Billy Bob Thornton was amazing. Sam Elliott, amazing. Whoever played Elsa, amazing. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. No, I'm kidding. They were good. They were fine. But this is a big deal. Maybe you don't understand. If you're from a small town, one of the things that you don't understand, like if you're from Dallas, is that you're never on TV. If you're from Dallas, you can drive an hour in any direction, and people still know where Dallas is. You can drive 2 hours in any direction. People still know where Dallas is. You can drive 10 hours, and people have still heard of Dallas. You can drive until you reach the ocean. People have heard of Dallas. One of the reasons I use the loving term bug tussle is for the towns I'm describing, most people around here probably hadn't heard of it. Where I'm from, if you drive an hour in any direction, it's pretty sketchy. It's about 50-50 if people have heard of your town or know where it's at. If you drive 3 hours in any direction, it's almost guaranteed no. And if you drive 10 hours in any direction, if you leave the state, no one knows. No one knows where I'm from. No one knows. No one's heard of Ferris before. Well, they're gonna. So now, not only do you have your town actually on the TV, which is something that blows your mind, you're going to have this forever. You're going to have landmarks. You're going to have characters. You're going to have a song. I don't know what the theme song is going to be, but it'll be like Dallas. You know, like Dallas has its own. Ferris will have its own theme song. You're going to hear some majestic orchestra crank out a score that was written just for you and your awesome little town. I don't know if we'll have an awesome slap bass like this, but you'll have a song that when you hear, you'll think of your hometown. Almost no small towns get this. You're spoiled if you live in Dallas or Fort Worth. Because when you're watching the Cowboys and they cut to commercial and there's like the helicopter shot of downtown, you're looking at your town. No one's ever made a helicopter shot and played it during a football game of my hometown. Or basically most of the map dots from here to the Atlantic Ocean. We don't get that kind of attention. Ferris is about to get it. So just do a good job, y'all. Whether it's a good show or a bad show, I really hope it catches on. I really hope this is going to be a fun moment for you guys. I'm so happy for you. And it's never going to go away. You can show your kids. You can show your grandkids. They can show their grandkids. Some of you are going to get to be extras in some of the scenes. Some of you are going to have your house in the background or your coffee shop in the background. Some of you are going to know that, oh, yeah, that was my friend that I went to high school with. It's going to be so cool. And it's for what seems to be a pretty successful endeavor here. 1883 was awesome. So far, the 19 whatever I'm watching, you think I'd know I'm watching it. Awesome. Yellowstone, obviously awesome. So I'm excited on your behalf, Ferris. I hope it goes very well for you. All right, this is going to about do it for the James Show. Go find the James Show podcast whenever you need time to kill. If you're on a road trip, if you're in the handicap stall, if you don't like the other shows, Go ahead, find it wherever you're already listening to podcasts. I prefer WBAP.com and the WBAP app. Also, go find our stuff when you're already goofing around on YouTube or you're goofing around on Facebook or Twitter/X or whatever the cool kids are calling it. We have a lot of good content on social media, so find us, like us, share us there. Every little reshare, retweet, restream, it all helps, and I appreciate it all. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.